Today we're going to make a basic animation using geometry nodes. And just for the record, these are actual, let me just show you quickly, holographic, let me go into solid view mode so you can see, actual toruses. And the final result will look something like this. So not only is it moving, but it's been displaced all over the place. Anyways, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get into it. All right, the first thing you want to do is select your default cube, press X and delete that, numpad 1 for front orthographic view. Let me quickly turn on my keystrokes so you can see what I'm pressing in case my accent is distracting. Shift A, mesh. We're going to use the monkey head Suzanne. Zoom in, right click, shade smooth, modify properties, add modifier, subdivision surface, level 2, and Suzanne is looking clean. Then press numpad 7 for top orthographic view, shift A, mesh, Torus, right click, shade smooth. Let's choose wireframe mode with X-ray turned on, and we're going to press S to scale this all the way in. Make it nice and small, choose the size that you like, and press GX, move it across on the X-axis, but most importantly, press Ctrl A and apply the scale. Very important that the scale is applied. Press numpad 1 for front orthographic view, and we go back to solid view mode. Great. Last thing we need to quickly create is mesh, empty, and we'll just use a sphere. And now we are ready to begin. So the first thing you want to do is lift this all the way up to about there. And change this to your geometry node editor. Oh, Control. Click on the monkey head. Press new, and now we can start. Make sure you added the geometry node to Suzanne, nothing else, or else you'll be on the wrong track. All right, and you can tell it's correct based on this as well, because we added the subdivision and then afterwards the geometry node. Perfect. First thing you want to do is press shift A, point, distribute. So we're going to add a point distribute, and like we normally do with these, we're just going to lift this all the way up, press shift A, geometry, join geometry, connect this over here and connect this over here. Now we have the monkey head as well as these different points. And if we increase the density to, let's say, 50, you can maybe make more sense of it, which is pretty cool. Another thing we want to do is press shift A, input, value, chuck this over here, put hashtag, everything has to be lowercase, FRAME, enter. Now we've created a driver that changes based on the frame we are in. If you're not too sure what I mean by how it changes based on the frame we are in, let me show you. Currently it's on frame 1. If we go to frame, every frame is about 30, every second is about 30 frames. So if we go to frame 30, it shows 30. If we go to frame 78, it goes there. And basically what we're doing is we're creating this interesting effect where the location of all these dots change based on that specific frame, which is a cool feature in itself. The next thing we want to do is press shift A, point, instance. Now we want to instance those halo points with a specific object, and we're going to use the torus, which kind of makes sense if you think about it. Select these two things and just chuck this all the way down here for the time being. So this is looking pretty good so far, and we probably want to up this. Let's make this 10,000. And based on what I can tell, 10,000 might be just a tad much. So maybe make it 500 and see how it looks. And the reason why it looks like this is because we haven't changed this to poison disk, and we don't want things to overlap, so we'll put this on 0.1. And we'll make this 10,000 now. And that's as many as we can have on here, which is perfectly fine. So I'm quite happy with that. The next thing we want to do, there's a few things we need to do here. First thing we need to do is press shift A, attribute, shift A, attribute, vector math, connect this in over here, and we want to know the distance of this empty in relation to Suzanne. So let's select Suzanne, and we're going to choose the distance, press Shift A, input, object info, change it to location, choose the empty, change attribute to vector. Reason why we're using vectors is because we've got the x coordinates, y coordinates, and z coordinates, and we can just connect the location to that. So now what we are saying is, look at the distance between, put in here position of Suzanne to the empty has to be relative to the empty. We'll determine a new attribute we're calling distance. Now this does nothing right now, but it tracks the difference now, like where this is in relation to Suzanne, which is going to be super useful for the next part that we're going to tackle in a second. So the first thing you want to do is press Shift A, attribute, and we're going to use attribute math. Connect this in over here. Let's change this to multiply. And we want to look at the scale. Now please note that nothing's popping up here. The scale. And we want to work out the difference between we want to change the scale based on our new attribute we created, which is the distance. In other words, how far apart the x and y coordinates are to the, you guessed it, scale. So the scale of our object will change based on the distance to this scale. But the problem here is scale doesn't exist yet. It's an attribute that we need to create. So we're going to press Shift A, attribute, fill, connect this in at the beginning over here. And, hold on. And we're going to leave this on float. We're going to call this scale. Now we've created it. Now we can just set this to 1 and we are ready to go. So now when we click on this, let's zoom in and we move this, you can see it goes really big this way, and if I move it this way, you can see how it kind of works. So it's not working exactly how we want, but we can see it's finally starting to make some sort of sense. So one thing we want to do is limit how big and small it can get, make between 0 and 1. I think that should be fine. And that's quite an easy way to do it. Also, we need to flip it. And all you need to do is use one attribute for this. So I'm going to press Shift A over here between the multiply and the distance. Shift A, attribute color ramp, connected in over here. Let's make it ease. And we just need to know the distance attribute. And the result is also going to be the distance attribute. And what this does, now when we move this, everything is 1. But anything that's exactly on top of, let me just show you. Let me just press 1, G. So if I put this over here, you can see that 0 exists, but it's just the wrong way around. So the way we fix that is we just flip this. So now it only shows based on that, which is pretty cool. And that's about it. So now we can, now that we've created this beautiful geometry node effect, we want to take this one step further. Let's select this over here, change to our shader editor. Now you could go the cheap, quick way. Hold on, well, this is Suzanne currently, so let's just make Suzanne glossy or something. Let's make it the gold this time. Glossy 0.15. Some interesting gold. Change to render view. And add an HDRI image. You can go to hdrihaven.com to download yourself a free HDRI image. Let's add one quickly. So the gold can really pop. And now we still need to add something to this so it doesn't just look like it does. So we click on the Torus, go to material settings, press new, and we could go the cheap way and just use one method, which is emissions. Put this on 30 and choose a color like blue, for example. And the other thing you need to do is turn on ambient occlusion, bloom, screen space reflection and refraction. Volumetrics, now this is overkill for the scene, but I'd put this at 2, and I'd turn on volumetric shadows, and I'd choose high quality normals. And just like that, we have a beautiful scene. But this is a quick way to do it, and it looks a bit too solid for me. So what I do is I just convert it into a hologram by pressing Shift A, shader, mix shader, Shift A, shader, transparent shader, Shift A, search, layer weight, facing 0.9. Go to your material settings and change this to, you can choose alpha blend for a nice holographic effect, which is quite interesting. Or you might go for a unique one, which would be alpha clip, which I quite like in some occasions. It's just got an interesting effect to it. So let's use that this time around. Let's choose an angle for our camera. Something like this should be fine. Let's clean up our scene. Bring this down. Control Shift numpad 0. And all we need to do now is press G, X, chuck this over here. Press I, location, to keyframe the location of this empty. Go to change the frame to, let's say, 50. G, X, I, location, change it to 100. G, now press I, location, and this time we're going to end this at 110. Now what should also happen, because we've changed it, the variable in each frame, it should move like, flutter like a star almost. It's never in the same place. Even when it's not moving at all, it's moving, which creates a really interesting, weird effect. But that said, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.